over 20 years, he has passionately studied the art and science of natural healing and made it his mission to spread the word of health and wellness to the global community. Since founding Global Healing Center in 1998, he has led the research and development team in formulating groundbreaking nutraceuticals designed to promote internal cleansing and good health. His approach is based on the understanding that disease is caused by an accumulation of toxins within the body. Tonight, Dr. Group will be sharing with you his expert opinion on how you too can discover the secret to health. Dr. Edward Group is a doctor of chiropractic, a naturopathic physician, certified clinical nutritionist, a holistic health practitioner, certified clinical herbalist, and a diplomat of the Chiropractic Board of Clinical Nutrition. A published author, frequent radio and television guest, and internationally known speaker, his accomplishments in science and natural medicine have garnered worldwide recognition. Under his leadership, Global Healing Center has become one of the world's most respected natural and alternative health resources. His passion and integrity truly solidify his position as a modern-day Renaissance man. Please join me in welcoming to the stage Dr. Edward F. Group.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I don't know about Renaissance man, more like renegade man, but thank you so much for coming out and listening to this tonight. This is very important and it's close to my heart because, you know, originally I wanted to be a medical doctor and ended up meeting somebody that got me into natural medicine and kind of had an argument with him. And, you know, the way I was trained really was that, you know, medicine is everything, and it wasn't until I actually went and started looking and breaking down the prescription medications really and found that that was just a Band-Aid. It was just, you know, putting something over a symptom but not addressing the root cause of disease. And that's what led me to develop the secret to health, because really disease is not something that people should be fearful of. I mean, right now, 10 out of 10 people pretty much are suffering from something, whether it's a headache once a week or joint pain or muscle pain. It's not something that everybody needs to run to their doctor for. And even when I was going through training and trying to learn everything I can about natural medicine, still, even when I was meeting with medicine man, or if I was going through chiropractic, or I was going through naturopathic or whatever, it still didn't teach me the root cause, really. I mean, still all of that was, okay, well, instead of prescribing a medication, let's prescribe white willow bark for your headache or something like that. Now, chiropractic is awesome because there's so much that it does to reactivate all the organs and everything. But what I wanted to do was figure out, what is it that causes all negative health conditions? What is the root cause of all disease? And that's what I'm going to share with you tonight. So basically, everything is in simplicity. You know, you can look for all the answers out here for years and years and years. I mean, I had a degenerative disease clinic because cancer was really something that I wanted to focus on. That was, you know, I'm the type of person that I want the hardest thing, and then I want to learn every single thing about it. If nobody in the world knows how to cure cancer, I want to figure it out. And myself and a few other people just dove really deep into that years ago while we were studying all this and said, we're going to figure out how to teach people, because everybody has a self-healing mechanism inside their body. That's what's not being taught. You know, the best medicine and the best doctor is you. You know, but you're supposed to listen to your body, and you're supposed to listen to your symptoms that the body gives you, because the body will always give you symptoms. That headache is not your body telling you, run to get some ibuprofen. That's your body telling you, you ate something wrong, you slept wrong, something is malfunctioning within your system. You know, I was young and getting out of school, and we just, you know, I went down, we trained with all the doctors in Mexico because they have to go down there because you're not allowed in the United States to heal disease or teach somebody how to heal disease. I mean, anybody that starts to become successful will get run out of town, or they'll get raided, or anything like that. I mean, some of the stuff that I'm going to talk to you guys about, hopefully a lot of you already know it, but I mean, if you pick someone off the street and you start going into a lot of the stuff we're going to share tonight, you have to have an open mind, because some of this stuff, every single thing that I'm going to tell you tonight is 100% true. Whether you agree with it or not is up to you. But what I say is I've spent 20 years doing research on every single one of these topics that I'm going to share with you tonight. And if you want some of that research, feel free to contact me. But I always recommend people do their own research, because that's what really changes you. You know, somebody can come up to you and say, yeah, gluten's bad for you. And, you know, maybe that person will believe them. But I'm the type of person that I want to see all the research behind it. So when we felt comfortable with our theories and with, you know, what we had learned, we opened up a degenerative disease clinic and cancer clinic, even though everybody told me not to, in 1999 here in Houston, actually. And it got so big so fast because we had such good success rates. And when the patients would come in and we would talk to them, I would say, and we ended up having people from all over the world flying in with all different types of diseases that had already seen 10, 15, 20 different doctors, and even natural doctors that still couldn't figure out what was wrong with them. So they would come in and look me in the face, and they would usually be upset, and they would say, well, what are you going to do that none of the other doctors did? And I said, okay, well, what's wrong with you? Well, I have cancer. Okay, well, tell me why you have cancer. Explain to me why you have cancer. And they said, well, I don't know. You know, my doctor just said I had cancer. And I said, well, don't you think that you need to understand why you have cancer first before you learn how to get rid of your cancer? Did any of your doctors explain to you the root cause of your cancer? And they would say, no, nobody ever did. I said, so what did any of those doctors do to take 2 steps back and cleanse you and detoxify you, because obviously your body's already toxic, before they put you on chemo and radiation or before they put you on all kinds of natural stuff? They would say, well, nothing. I said, well, okay, well, that's what we're going to do that's different from everybody else. And then we would take them through a 2 or 3 hour lecture. And it's not only cancer. Every single thing here that you're going to learn in an hour and a half is more than all the medical doctors know out there, the majority of them, and majority of people out there. You'll have all the answers that you need, and you'll totally understand what causes disease and negative health conditions. And we were really successful with that clinic until the word got out, and then we ended up getting raided and was told that we couldn't do what we were doing here in the United States. And basically I had to shut down. And they still come in my office 2 times a year. Matter of fact, they were just in last week, the FDA, for 5 hours harassing us about what we're trying to do, because we're trying to help people. So first I want to start off by giving you a little background about how health came about and science came about. From Christ to the 1600s, the mission of science before the modern era, this is before pharmaceuticals, was to gain an understanding of the natural order so we can live in harmony with it. But then we had the scientific revolution up to 1643. And that was the start of the man-made science. Nature had to be bound into service and made a slave. She was to be put in constraint, and the aim of the scientist was to torture nature's secrets from her. And since that time, everything's been going downhill. The new mission statement after 1643 to the present is to obtain knowledge that can be used to dominate and control nature. You see everybody across the world right now who's suffering from sickness. But what a lot of people don't know is the whole world is suffering from sickness. We're losing 200 species a day that are eliminated forever. The earth is just as sick as everybody else is. So what's the difference between modern medicine and natural medicine? Modern medicine is that an organism is controlled from inside the cell, that the genes control the organism, and heredity passes the trace, which is called genetic determinism. That means if your mom had breast cancer, you might have breast cancer. And what's crazy right now is that you have women that are going in and getting double mastectomies because their doctor told them that they have a chance to get breast cancer because their mom had breast cancer. But that is not true. And that's actually been proven by a guy named Dr. Bruce Lipton, who's a cellular biologist, and he's made one of the greatest discoveries of all time, that natural medicine is an organism, being us, or any organism, a tree or something, is controlled from outside the cell. The environment controls the organism, which is called genetic adaptation. So we're basically going to adapt to what we're exposed to. That's what makes sense. Obviously, if we, drink a bunch of gasoline or something, that's going to affect us. What exactly is a gene? A gene is a DNA segment that determines your individual traits, characteristics, or susceptibility to disease. Now, if we look at it in natural medicine, the way that it's supposed to be, that the genes get the signals from outside of the cell, that all the commands and body function is determined by the energetic reading of the environment, either the internal environment and the external environment. It comes from the outside in. We smell it, we taste it, we're exposed to EMFs or something like that. And modern medicine is just the opposite. It says that the genes get signals from inside of the cell, which is impossible, really, if you think about it. All the commands and body mechanics start in the nucleus of the cells, right? How many times have you heard the nucleus is the brain of the cell? That's where everything starts. Well, Dr. Lipton wanted to prove that wrong and actually removed the nucleus, the brain, from the cell. And the cell still was alive. The cell still lived. It respirated. It went to the bathroom. It couldn't replicate, but it was living. It still lived. So that means that modern medicine is completely wrong, that the outside of the cell membrane, is really the brain of the cell. Because when he removed the cell membrane, it'd be like removing your skin, then the cell died. The reason I'm explaining that is because all disease starts at the cellular level, or all malfunction starts at the cellular level. We have 100 trillion cells. Cells clump together to make tissues, tissue clumps together to make organs. Organs work to develop systems in the body, and then all of that together is the human body. So what really causes malfunction, or what really causes disease, is the perception and alterations in cellular function from the internal and external environment. What you're exposed to, the air you're exposed to, the environment you're exposed to. If you live in a big city as opposed to out in the woods, that would be your external environment. Words that are coming in at you, the people that you meet, those are all external things that would affect you and stress you out or cause some negative harm. And the internal environment is really the majority of stuff we're going to be talking about today, is how the internal environment affects you. And that's going to be through the foods, the beverages, the heavy metals, the drugs. Physical and emotional stress is going to be an external. Microbial infestation, parasites would be an internal. Negative belief patterns, blocked elimination routes, which is one of the reasons why we have too many toxins coming into the body on a daily basis and not enough coming out, where your cells become confused and start malfunctioning. Now, if you look at the way that life is in general, every living substance, or every living organism, is composed of at least 80% water minimum. The earth itself is composed of 80% water minimum. The cells are filled with water. Your cells are filled with water, and around your cells is water. It's very close to seawater, actually. It's almost identical to seawater, but it's water. What happens is the water in your cell and the water surrounding your cell starts to become toxic. And your self-healing mechanism that you were born with, the one that's the most powerful that you have, starts to fall down, and your self-healing mechanism can't be activated. It's hard to activate your self-healing mechanism. I talked about how your body is water, and this is very interesting because there was a guy named Masaru Emoto who did a lot of research on water structure and function. And he found that the water can change by toxin exposure, your thought patterns, belief, the frequency, exposing the cell to potentially dangerous conditions, or it can change when you expose the cell to healthy conditions as well. So this is some of the findings that he found in the structure of water. So what a perfect clean water should look like the slide on the left. It's a crystalline structure, just like your cell membrane is a crystalline structure when it's normal and it has everything it needs. Because as a crystal, it acts as a semiconductor. It has gates and channels that open and close, and it can receive frequencies or signals and send frequencies and signals. That's exactly what you want. So what he did was he took 2 vials, one with pure clean water and another vial which was contaminated with toxins. He looked at it under a microscope, and this is what he saw. So you can see that the one that's contaminated with toxins is altered and is malfunctioning. One vial, he put the word thank you on it with clean water, and the other vial, he wrote, "You make me sick, I will kill you." Then he tested the water again, and that's what he came out with. He then wanted to see how sound affected your water. And so you can see that box air for the G string has a 6-sided crystalline structure, where heavy metal music completely breaks the structure of water. It can't function properly. So even though the sound and the music that you listen to is very important. After he did all that, which were external factors on the water, trying to figure out how that was going to affect water, then he said, well, I wonder if we can affect water just by thinking, just by thoughts. So there was a pond, and this pond was heavily contaminated. He took a sample of it, the water, which is on the left, before offering a prayer. And there was like 3 or 4 monks, I think, with him. He took a sample of it, and then they went to the pond and they sat around and they all thought positive thoughts like love and blessings and all this stuff into the water for like 15 or 20 minutes. Then they took another reading, and that's what happened to the water. So that is pretty amazing when you can think, put good thoughts into something and have it go from that contamination to a perfect angelic looking crystal right there. The one thing, and I'm going to be talking about this a lot later, that really worries me and a lot of the physicians, the natural physicians that are out there right now that are seeing this in their practice, is electromagnetic radiation. What worries me is when you can't see something and you can't feel something, but it's there bombarding your body in a negative way, and you really don't have any choice to get away from it. That's electromagnetic radiation. And what he found was the water was the worst with electromagnetic radiation, because on the right you see water influenced by electromagnetic waves continue to be broken because of the waves. They can't reform themselves into crystals. And that's with TV, cell phones, electromagnetic waves, and other different types of frequencies, microwave radiation, etc. Looking at all the different types of toxins, all the different things that can cause disease after so many years, and we actually went through so much testing. I had like over 300 different nutritional supplements that we were using with people. But again, I only did that for a while because I realized that there was something even simpler than that, and simpler than that, and simpler than that. And I'm not talking about stuff that you get at Vitamin Shop. We had individual supplements that were really high tech coming from Germany and Switzerland and all different areas of the world. But we started researching and it's like, why is this stuff not taught? I mean, what's going on here? So we looked at all these toxin exposure pathways and said, okay, we know that the air, the food, the water, blah, 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 are coming into the body, but how are they getting into the body? So then we looked at all the exposure points and realized that about 95%, even the toxins that you breathe in through your respiratory system, a lot of times they get caught in your mucous membranes. And your mucus, that's why you have the little nose hairs and all that, and you secrete mucus, and then it drains down into your stomachs. To protect the lungs, really, from breathing in a lot of stuff, although you still do get toxins in through your skin and your lungs, probably about 5 to 10%. But we really realized the most important area, and where 95% of these things were entering your body, was the intestines and the colon. It's how most of the disease-causing, emotional disrupting, cellular malfunctioning things happen. And that's the first exposure point. I put closely guarded secret by Big Pharma because When we realized that the target point was the intestines, I started asking all the gastroenterologists. I started calling around, figuring out what the training was like, and I realized that they really didn't have any training in the gastrointestinal tract, and even the gastroenterologists really didn't know about any type of toxins. And that led me to thinking, well, why is it that we have supposedly the best scientists in the world in the medical arena, and they still don't know what the appendix is? That doesn't make sense, you know? I mean, still to this day, the medical profession does not know what the appendix is. So I started trying to find out what the appendix was. And there's really not a lot of information out there. We ended up tracking down and translating information from German and Russian documentation. They know Germany is way ahead of us as far as natural medicine goes, and found out that the appendix is really the brain of your body. It's really your microcomputer chip. It's not up in your brain like what we thought before. The cell, the nucleus of the cell was the brain, then we learned it's not. Now we learned that the appendix is the brain of the body, and the reason why it is because your appendix is located at the juncture of your small and large intestine. Why wouldn't the micro relay center of the brain of your body, why would it not be located in the intestines? That's where every single thing comes in. The appendix actually helps regulate every single system in your body. The neurological, the endocrine system, because it knows and reads what you put in your system. It's going to read the acid alkaline base. It's going to read what your probiotics is like. You know, it's going to tell your body, your liver, what to prepare for. It's going to tell your brain and your hormones and your endocrine system what hormones to produce. It's going to relay every single thing that you've given it. Either you've given it unhealthy stuff and it's going to relay that to your body, or you've given it healthy stuff. It's going to tell you your water, you know, all that stuff. So it just goes to show you again how important the intestines and the colon is. You have 30 feet or so of intestinal lining, about 20 feet or so of the small intestine, and then you have 10 feet in the colon. A lot of people focus on the colon, which is very important, but a lot of people don't focus on the small intestine. That's really where a lot of times you're going to get a lot of absorption of toxins. So you can see on the left, this would be a healthy colon, and a toxic colon would be anybody suffering from gas, bloating, diverticulitis, colon polyps, you know, colitis, any type of impaction, strictures, anything like that. And I put on there, if the average person knew that regaining their health was as easy as cleaning their intestines and the environment they exposed themselves to, and we wouldn't need prescription drugs. So, kind of touched on this, but this is kind of the map that we put together to show how disease really takes effect inside the system. So if you take, and these numbers are not, probably a lot under actually than what you would do. Just depends. Everybody lives in a different environment. You know, that's so important about the environment that you create yourself. You know, that's why you can't say that, that's why there's really no such thing as clinical trials, if you think about it. Because in order to do an accurate clinical trial, you would literally have to clone 40 people, because everybody's biochemistry is different, clone 40 people, have them exposed to the same diet every single day, same liquids consumed every day, same emotional and physical stress levels every day. It is technically impossible to do an accurate clinical trial. Let's say that you're taking in 200,000 toxins from air on a daily basis, 200,000 toxins from food on a daily basis, 200,000 from beverages, 200,000 from microbes, because microbes take your nutrients and secrete acids in their waste in your body. Microbes is, you know, fungus, candida, worms, viruses, bacteria, mycoplasms, you name it. Then you add the physical and emotional stress. I mean, that's one of the biggest ones that your body starts breaking down right away. The EMFs, or the frequencies, the negative frequencies that you're exposed to. Heavy metals, prescription medications if you're on them. And the last one is blocked neurological feedback. You know, if you've had trauma, or you've been in accidents or spinal malfunction, you know, your organs, like even if one of your bones is out in your back that goes to the nerve that goes to your liver might not be functioning at 100%. It won't be. It might be functioning at 80%. So how is your liver going to detoxify all those toxins coming in if it's not correct? And so many people have blocked neurological feedback. Pretty much everybody does. So, to explain the disease process, there's no such thing as a separate disease for diabetes and arthritis and cancer and all the millions of diseases they have, the hundreds of thousands of diseases that they have labeled out there, fibromyalgia and all that. It all just one thing. It's just too many toxins coming in and not enough coming out. So let's say you have 2.1 million toxins coming in on a daily basis. Your body can only handle 1 million toxins on a daily basis. What happens to that additional 1.1 million toxins? Well, everybody has ways to eliminate these toxins from their body on a regular basis. If your liver's functioning good and you can detoxify, great. You still have to eliminate them though. Women have 5 ways to eliminate toxins. Guys have 4 ways. You're going to eliminate this through respiration. You're going to breathe them out. You know, if you're doing heavy activity and you're sweating at the same time, that's 50% of your elimination routes right there. You're going to breathe them and sweat them out. Problem is, we've become a sedentary society, a sedentary world with computers. Nobody's exercising that much anymore. Next is going to be urination and defecation. You're going to defecate it out. And women obviously have their menstrual cycles, which women have 5 ways to eliminate. Might be one of the reasons why they live longer. Then men have 4 ways to eliminate toxins from their body. Most people aren't drinking enough water. Matter of fact, the studies that we did, we found that 90% of Americans are chronically dehydrated because they drink coffee, colas, alcohol, wine, beer, tea. Nobody likes to drink water. So they're not urinating all the toxins out anymore. They're not defecating the toxins out either because they're not having their 2 to 3 bowel movements a day, or at least 2 bowel movements a day. They're having maybe 2 bowel movements a week. So this is a basic understanding of how it all boils down to, are you taking in more toxins than you're relieving on a regular basis? So now I want to start going into some of these because I believe that you have to learn where these things are, but at the same time, I'm not just going to sit up here and say, oh yeah, this is all the stuff and goodbye, because you want to have solutions to all this too. So it's about, I don't believe there's such thing as problems, but there's always situations and there's always a remedy for the situations. So the body toxins from air that we're dealing with continue to get worse and worse and worse. What's happened is, if you look 100 years ago, we had 28% oxygen in the air. Right now, oxygen is a key component. I mean, oxygen and water is what drives your body. And right now, in some cities, it's down to 6%. So we're lit because of all the trees that are being cut down, everything's being poisoned. We're losing our oxygen levels. So that, when you don't, oxygen is a natural detoxifier. I mean, you hear all this stuff about the ozone and ozone this and ozone that. Ozone is actually a good thing. I mean, you can't breathe it directly in, but we've used ozone with incredible results, going with ozone directly into the blood, ozone insufflations. It's an amazing healing substance, and you can read, massive amount of clinical research on the effects of ozone in the body. We take about 30,000 breaths every single day. So out of those 30,000 breaths, oxygen and air quality is one of the most important things for our body in order for us to heal properly. Down here, you have a lot of mold and mildew. If you have pets, you have pet dander. Home building sickness syndrome is huge, which means that most of the homes and the buildings that people work in are actually sick. We have smoke, ozone and pollution, dirty AC filters, chemtrails. This is a controversial issue. We've done a lot of research on it. I'm sure you guys have seen all the trails in the sky lately. VOCs, volatile organic compounds. All this you add up, and these are the things that you're breathing into your body on a daily basis. As a matter of fact, playing and crawling on a typical floor exposes babies to fumes from contaminants such as mold, mildew, and dust mites. 1 day of exposure introduces the equivalent of 4 cigarettes to an infant's lungs. The carpet has a lot of what's called volatile organic compounds, fire retardants, stuff like that, and chemicals on it that outgas, and just all the dust and everything else that falls onto the carpet. Sick building syndrome and house syndrome you have up in the attic. Usually most people have toxic things. You can see the couch, the rug, even the car. You might have paints and stuff in there. There's usually a lot of toxic things. We were doing a reality show called Dr. Detox, where we actually went into people's homes and started, and even when we had our clinic, we would go into people's homes because everybody will tell you, yeah, I don't have anything that's toxic, you know, everything's fine. And you walk in and you say, you go through the kitchen, this is toxic, this is toxic. You go through the whole house, and then you end up seeing, you know, all these things that are exposing people. We had a cancer patient that was 18 one time. We couldn't find what was going on. Healthy kid, you know, ate pretty good. And sure, we went to his house, and sure enough, right, he had testicular cancer. And sure enough, right where he slept on his bed was a geopathic fault line, and it was producing this negative energetic field coming up right where his testicles were. And so we moved his bed to another room, and then he started to get better. It could be something that simple. In the last 10 years, respiratory disease in the U.S. has moved from 8th to the 3rd highest cause of death. Of course, the #1 leading cause of death is medical mistakes. The average bed is home to anywhere from 100,000 to 10 million dust mites, and you can't see them. 80% of the material you can see floating in a sunbeam is actually human skin flakes. Indoor air may have toxic chemical concentrations of up to 100 times higher than outdoor air. And 50% of all illness, according to the American College of Allergies, is caused or aggravated by indoor air pollution. Because they're building all these buildings and homes so tight and energy efficient that nothing is allowed, and they're building it with toxic materials too that are coated in fire retardants, formaldehyde, and all kinds of chemicals. Talked a little bit about chemtrails, but I feel it's very important because what's happening is we've done a lot of research into this, and it's a controversial kind of conspiratory subject. But the fact is, it's true. And if you do the research, you'll find the same thing. There's been tests and people going to test the snow and everything out there. And you can read the government documents, actually. They say themselves that they're spraying high levels of aluminum nanoparticles in the atmosphere. That's why a bunch of stewardesses and flight attendants are being ill. They actually have aerotoxic syndrome now because the pilots are quitting and they're all becoming severely ill. I know that because Southwest Airlines contacted me and wanted me to help them out with some of their health stuff because their expenses are getting so high because all their flight attendants. Well, what they're doing, and when you fly, is they're sucking this air in from the outside. And what they're spraying in the air, according to preventing global warming, is high levels of aluminum nanoparticles. And the aluminum nanoparticles, that's the main one, but there's all kinds of other things. They found desiccated human red blood cells in there. They found uranium particles in there, pathogens, pesticides, all kinds of stuff. All this stuff is falling down on us. Thank God Houston is not really a heavily sprayed city, but in other parts of the United States, they're spraying every single day. And it's affecting the soil, it's killing plants, etc. So I would highly recommend that you do some research on that and maybe help join the revolution on trying to get them to stop. So what do you do and how do you breathe clean air? One of the things I like is telling people to put live plants in their home, like at least 2 plants, and the office too, because plants produce oxygen and they absorb toxins, actually, and they process them. And they also suck in carbon dioxide. Taking walks in nature and near water is always really good. The ions in the air are really good around waterfalls or the ocean. Oxygen supplements are available out there. Changing your air filters regularly in your home is really important. You can also use aromatherapy diffusers. That's where you put essential oils in a diffuser and it just kind of goes through your air and helps clean the air. Crystal salt lamps work good as well. The HEPA filtration is okay. The one I recommend and the one I use is the REMI unit. And the reason why is when the SARS epidemic broke out in China, the Chinese government hired a team of scientists to find what was the best air purification system in the world that they could use for their hospitals and put in all their buildings so they would kill the SARS. And they looked all over the world and tested a bunch of them, and it was a company in the United States that had the best unit. And they sell a unit called the REMI unit, and it produces ionized hydroperoxides. And what I love about it is it actually fits into your HVAC or your main air conditioning system. So a lot of those air purification systems that just turn and on your floor, they only grab an ionized stuff like this high. Well, you're up here breathing this air, and then it falls to the ground. This actually goes through all your ducts and comes down in and cleans all the air in your home. The bedroom I put on there is really the most important part if you want to take this slow and start cleaning up your air, because you want to be able to sleep sound for 8 hours every night. That's when your body heals, and you want to be able to breathe clean air when you sleep. So it's really important. Anybody that has like the memory foam mattresses, the first thing we would do is we would go into the person's bedroom and say, this is what we need to fix first. You have memory foam mattress in here, which is outgassing stuff that you're breathing all night long. You need to switch to an organic mattress, switch to organic bedding, switch to organic pillow. You have your cell phone plugged in right here. Get rid of that. Let's put some plants in here. Let's clean up this place where you sleep and make your sleeping environment really nice and clean, because you're going to be, sleeping there and breathing that air in all night long. So it has to be clean. And most of the time, every time we did that, a lot of their symptoms would just start going away already, just for that 8 hours of breathing pure, clean air. Next, we're going to move on to body toxins from food. Genetically modified foods are something that are extremely serious because they're everywhere. But these are the things that you want to look out for food. Most food has pesticides, has herbicides in it, meat has hormones, antibiotics, dairy, soy. Soy is high in phytoestrogens. Most of it's genetically modified, but we have a major hormone disruption syndrome going on in the United States, and some of that's due to soy. White flour, table salt, MSG, which just makes everything taste better, gluten, microwaved foods. The Russians actually outlawed microwaves in the 70s because they were so bad. And think about it. You're going to take a food and put it in a box, and you're going to put microwave energy through that food. It heats it from the inside out. It rips and tears through all the nutrients. So you could put a hamburger in the microwave and take a hamburger out of the microwave, and it might look like a hamburger, smell like a hamburger, but what it is radiated toxic mass that you're putting inside your system. So really, what you want to do is you want to have live food instead of dead food. Anything that's dead doesn't have a life force to it as opposed to live food. Daily toxins from food, maybe 200,000. Here's what's happening with GMOs. We've made a big stride with genetically modified organisms, but it's really scary because the Bt toxin is actually engineered into plants, and it's called the Bacillus thuringiensis. And what it is, it's a bacteria. It's actually a pesticide, insecticide bacteria. But the plants are manufacturing it now, and so how it's designed to work is when the bugs come on the plants and they eat the plant or the apple or whatever, it produces the Bt toxin. They get it in their body, and it ruptures their stomach and intestinal lining, and it blows up, and the bug dies. So they don't have to use a bunch of pesticides and insecticides. What's happening is the bee population is dying off because they're going to pollinate, and they're getting the Bt toxin in their stomach and blowing up. The butterfly population is decreasing because the butterflies are getting the pollen on them from the plants with the Bt toxin, and their stomachs are blowing up. The whole ecosystem, and what scares me even more is what's happening to the kids right now. Because I have 2 little kids, and kids are way more vulnerable to these things than adults are. And when you have kids that are, anytime you go out to a restaurant, you have corn chips, a Mexican restaurant, you have anything made with soy, just look in your cabinet, and you're going to see a bunch of stuff in there that has soy in it, or it has corn in it, which is genetically modified, and probably the Bt toxin. And that's why that allergies in children is skyrocketing now. Like 1 out of every 3 children is suffering from rashes and allergies and everything else, because the Bt toxin will burn tiny holes through the intestines. And then you will get severe leaky gut syndrome, and all of these particles and toxins will leak into the bloodstream and cause an immune reaction immediately. It'll cause the immune system to attack it. So 80% of processed foods right now contain GMOs. And the GMO plants that don't have the Bt toxin are requiring more pesticides and insecticides, and it's really, really damaging the world. And, you know, we have a lot of videos and a lot of research on that. If anyone's interested, to just contact us and we'll provide that information. The next thing that's really damaging, that's contributing to the root cause of disease, is excitotoxins. And Russell Blaylock is a doctor who actually termed excitotoxins because he saw so many problems in the brain. Excitotoxins affect parts of the brain that control behavior, emotions, and sleep cycles. Okay? Guess what? Artificial sweeteners, food dyes and colorings, extremely toxic. Have you ever had your kid go to a party and most of the food dyes are in all the different types of food for kids. And then all of a sudden they're just going through the roof and they're, you can't understand what's going on. You're thinking, oh yeah, this is probably the sugar, which probably a lot of it is. ADD, rash, depression, MSG is a dangerous neurotoxin, and excitotoxin. And it's not, all the artificial sweeteners are, and those are things that you really, really want to avoid. All the medications that are prescribed for emotional disorders or whatever you have really are not necessary, because these are all the things that are causing those conditions. When you go into the doctor and say, I'm depressed, the doctor's not saying, okay, are you eating excitotoxins? Are you exposing yourself to heavy metals? All the things that are going to cause malfunction in the brain tissue that are going to cause your depression and your anxiety and everything else. That's why also you see the kids on Ritalin and Adderall and all these drugs. There was such a demand from people to take MSG off that the FDA and the USDA allowed the companies, the big lobbyists, to use and hide MSG under a bunch of different terms. Have you ever seen hydrolyzed vegetable protein on your label and thought it was okay? What about hydrolyzed plant protein? That sounds good. Sodium caseinate, calcium caseinate, textured protein, natural flavoring. This is everywhere. They really get by with the natural flavoring. Chicken flavoring, soy protein, whey protein concentrate, Those are all the different terms and more that they hide MSG. In combination with the GMOs and all the digestive issues that we're seeing, because your intestinal tract starts to malfunction before anything else in your body does. Really started looking into gluten, and what I've found and what all the people that I've talked to and all the doctors, all the allergists and all the specialists, they all say the same thing. Get all your patients off of gluten, get all the kids off of gluten. And you see amazing things happen when you get them off of gluten and a lot of grains too. Gluten's the protein found in wheat, barley, rye, and spelt and kamut. 80% of people are turning out to be gluten or wheat intolerant and don't even know it. Personally, if you look at the chemistry behind it, the body's not meant to process gluten, so I would say 100% of the people are, you might not feel it, okay? You don't feel all this stuff. Some people are more sensitive than other people, but I guarantee you that every single person cannot break down gluten properly, and it's bad for everybody. There's 250 symptoms associated with gluten intolerance. 250 symptoms. Gastrointestinal, celiac, allergies, fatigue, joint pains, mood swings, unhappiness, depression, skin problems. The list goes on and on. But it also, all these things, like I said, it contribute to different things. And another thing that we're seeing with all these chemicals leaking through the bloodstream is hormone disruption, your endocrine system, which controls all the hormones in your body. When I was growing up, there was no such thing as a fertility clinic. Now there's a fertility clinic on every single corner. Men and women are having problems because all of these things cause you to become sterile, lower your sperm count, have an effect on your endocrine system. These are endocrine disruptors. Phthalates, plastics, BPA, those are anything that's in a plastic container. Medications are hormone disruptors. Antidepressants, fluoride, pesticides. There's low sperm counts. Endocrine disrupting chemicals are having gender-bending qualities. They're finding frogs now in fish that have both male and female sex organs because all these things are being dumped in the water. It's causing sterility, the phytoestrogens in soy, and even personal care products. When your hormones are disrupted, it's hard for anything to function in your body. Well, how do we eliminate toxins from food? Well, eat fresh fruit, vegetables, raw seeds, limit your meat intake. The most important thing is to just eat organic. You can eliminate the majority of this stuff if you just go to organic. Throw away your microwave, avoid GMOs, soy, table salt. You can replace your table salt with Himalayan crystal salt. Avoid refined sugar, white flour, all processed, boxed, canned foods. Avoid gluten and avoid the excitotoxins, MSG artificial sweeteners, food dyes, stuff like that. All the food dyes, by the way, all 7 of them, the blue, the yellow, the orange, the green, and all that, you would be amazed if you pull up some YouTube videos on those dangers of food dyes and the research that has been done on food dyes. They're actually banned in most other countries except for the USA because they're so toxic. And they actually cause symptoms of ADD, ADHD, and hyperactivity in children. So instead of looking at what your child is exposed to or what you're exposed to, people are looking at the symptoms, and that's why people are being drugged.